Habari, jina langu ni Rugare Mugumbate. I am talking about artificial intelligence today, and the topic is decolonizing artificial intelligence in teaching and learning. Colonization was experienced differently. Those in India, in Burma, in Indonesia, in Vietnam, they experienced it differently. Of course, there will be the Asian commonality, but community, country, village experiences will be different. Then in Sudan, in Burkina Faso, in Rwanda, in South Africa, the Sahrawi Republic, they will also have an African experience of colonization, but the individual village level, community level, country level experiences are also different. Those in Chile, as well as many others in Latin America, their experiences will also be different. Those in the Middle East, including Afghanistan, the Palestine, they also experienced colonization differently. And we can say the same of those in the Pacific. The Fiji, those in Vanuatu, those in Papua New Guinea, their experience of colonization was different. We can say the same as with experience of neo-colonization. The experiences will be different. Therefore, decolonization will also be different. However, there will be commonalities in terms of these processes of colonization, neo-colonization, and decolonization. The first one, the first commonality, which is Moja, number one for me, is that neo-colonization and colonization are acts of injustice. Then number two, they are exploitative, they benefit others at the expense of others. Then number three, which is Tatu, they can be found in technology. Neocolonialism and colonization is rife in technology. Then the last one, Ina, that's number four. It takes both the colonized and the colonizing to dismantle colonization and neo-colonization to ensure justice and equality, not only in economy and politics, but also in teaching and learning. There are several strategies that have been used before, and some continue to be used today to dismantle colonization and neo-colonialism. I'm sharing some of them. I've divided them into three. Strategies used by the colonizing, strategies used by the colonized, and the strategies used by both. I've also tried to thematize these strategies. The strategy of returning has been used by the colonizing, but of course, in most cases, demanded by the colonized. Then the act of reflecting and acting is also a crucial aspect of decolonization, where those coming from the colonized, from the colonizing rather, sit down, reflect, and act and take action. Then there's also removal. It has also been used. That's removing all threats to decolonizers or fears to decolonize. There are also two main themes used by the colonized. That's resisting, which can be through dialogue, through violence, through wars, through speaking, through research, and through creating content online when we talk about the current environment. Then there's also reclaiming, or the renaissance, which is about finding their own philosophies, or I should rather say our own philosophies, being creative, being productive, but also relinquishing colonial practices. There are also two aspects that can be done by both the colonizing and the colonized. Reversing is one of them, reversing the harms, but also reversing occupation, dispossession, education, knowledge, religion, supremacy, technology, laws, languages, philosophies, literature, among others. And one key important aspect for both is respect, respecting the processes to decolonize. So this is my own summary of what it means to decolonize and the roles that could be played by the colonizing, the colonized, and both. Now I turn to artificial intelligence, what it is. There has been a lot of information about what artificial intelligence is. It has been described as computer systems that combine several parts to produce something more meaningful. And others have emphasized that these are language models, not knowledge models. Thus, they combine, they put together different words and try to predict how they are often combined to come up with meaningful sentences, paragraphs, as well as essays. So they attempt to achieve the intelligence of humans, but of course, humans are giving them the capacity to imitate themselves. And of course, artificial intelligence is using data on the internet, and that data is fed by human beings. So that's how artificial intelligence has been described. How is it used in teaching and learning? There are several ways it is being used or being promoted in teaching and learning. Some of them are old ways. They've been there for quite a number of years. Some of them are new and popular. I'll just give you some of the ways artificial intelligence is being used in teaching and learning. Of course, the most popular one is Open AI, which is used to prompt ideas or to create ideas. Ideation, it helps you to develop ideas. Then it's also used to create assessment questions, to create case studies. It's also used for authoring, for editing, for rewriting, for translation checking. It can reduce thinking. So OpenAI can help you think by putting ideas together. There's another one, Adobe. It uses AI in a number of ways, but I've picked one here. It generates or edits images, presentations, and can replace creativity and produce biased images. So that's the challenge with Adobe, as well as some other AI applications that do the same things. Then there's also Zape and Character.ai. They create chatbots. You can speak with those chatbots on the internet without realizing that this is not a human being doing this. The challenge is that they can replace human beings, human labor. And we know the challenges with that. Then there is Bard, which is a Google product. It can check facts, it can search anything, it can do translations, it can write a blog post for you. It can also write a post on X or WhatsApp for you. It can simplify English. However, the challenge is that it undermines social interaction. Then there's Perplexity.ai. You can search anything there. It can create images for you. Like OpenAI, it reduces thinking. Then there's also Paw.com for creating presentations, images, bots, and the like. So there are many other ways AI is being used. It's being used to edit articles, to review articles, to screen writing or articles and the like. So it is being created to replace human beings, human thinking, and human presence in a number of tasks in teaching and learning. So I've gone into Perplexity.ai to search what decolonizing is. How to decolonize Perplexity AI. That's what I searched. So why I was doing that, I wanted to see what meanings of decolonization Perplexity would give me. So what I got when I searched in Perplexity were those images and the text of decolonization there. The text is good. The pictures are also good, including Rhodes Must Fall picture there, which is all about decolonizing the curricula. But a big problem that I noticed is the literature. Literature of the colonized is not prioritized in Perplexity, but do we think this is what it should be, or there is a problem with that? I also went in Adobe AI to search village in Buyera in Zimbabwe. I was thinking about myself here. That's where I come from. So I said, let me check, let me see what comes out. So it gives me all these images. They look a bit closer to what my village looks like. Maybe the bigger huts, the ones with iron, they don't really reflect what is there. But the vegetation looks like what I would expect in a rural African village. So I said, oh yeah, this is giving us good results. I then said, again, still in Adobe, let me search a Zimbabwean village in Buyera, and I would want this to show me girls playing soccer. And this is what came out. These pictures are not reflective of what I would expect to find in my village. Wouldn't expect girls, all these girls with long hair or afro hair, even though afro hair is thought to be African. It's not the standard. That's not what you'd expect. Rarely do you see lots of girls like this with afro hair. I think the concept of hair here, it's more from the American perspective, perhaps influenced by black American hairstyles, but not with Africans in Africa. You also wouldn't expect young girls with boots and soccer stockings and soccer uniforms playing soccer on grounds in the village. The situation would be different, and you also wouldn't expect those nice leather or plastic balls. We make our own balls to play in the village, our own plastic balls that we tie with string. So the situation here is different. So when you look at it closely, you should ask yourself, what influenced this design? What influenced this design? Now, with those findings and other searches that I did, I then said, let me ask ChatGPT, that's OpenAI, the question, can you be colonial? If yes, why? And the answers were there, and they were all clear answers. It said, yes, I can be colonial because of bias in training. So the computers or the technology is trained to combine words to come up with sentences and meanings, paragraphs, essays, articles, or even books. So that training is biased towards the colonized. Then there's reinforcement of stereotypes. So those stereotypes that young black girls should have hair that is long, or that is afro, or afro long hair makes women beautiful, or it should be the norm. It's reinforcing those stereotypes. But otherwise, like I said, in my village, long hair is not the norm. Long straight hair is not the norm. Afro hair, I can't even talk about it. Then, of course, it also said there's unequal access and impact. So unequal access to technology, unequal access to design technology, unequal access to writing and publishing. Then at times there is also cultural insensitivity created by those who train the models, who create the models. Then, of course, at times they also talk about extraction of resources, where resources from other communities are taken and used on the internet. It could be designs, it could be ways of doing things or solving problems. They are put in AI without acknowledgement or without payment for those who generated those resources. Then there's also centralization of power. Who becomes powerful in AI? those who create AI, those who run it, those who manage the language models, they become more powerful on the internet and even outside. Then there's also surveillance and control is one thing that they said. Often you find information that maybe contradicts the values of the colonizing. You don't find them on the internet, or there is surveillance and control to ensure that values that somehow go against the colonizing are removed. This often happens when it comes to, for example, you look at how do people look at colonization itself. How do they define it? How do people look at history? How do people look at gender relations? How do people look at sexuality? All those issues, you find there will be different views in most cases between the colonizing and the colonized. But at the end, it is the views of the colonizing that you find being dominant on the internet. And there is surveillance for views that contradict what the colonizers think about some of the controversial issues of the world. Then, of course, language and representation, it results in more colonizing tendencies. As we know, most of this work is done in English language, but what about the Igbo language? What about the Usa language? What about the Shona language? What about the Soto language? What about the Tswana language? And what about Amharic in Ethiopia? All those languages, they are not represented, and that representation results in the colonization of those languages and the dominance of colonizing languages. So others have described AI as a vector of a new kind of colonialism, and I agree with this. And a colonial hazard could spell trouble for marginalized groups. That's how others have described AI. Others have said it's hallucinative, especially for non-white populations. And others have said it is rife with racist and discriminatory bias. Yet others have said AI tends to exacerbate inequality and social injustice on a global scale. But why? It's because of the reasons that I've talked about before, but more specific reasons are that developers are largely white, and they base the training of AI on biased data sets. So the data is already biased, and they base the training on that data. Then, of course, non-prioritization of non-Western sources of knowledge, languages, and the like. So these are some of the reasons, some of the specific reasons why AI has been described as neo-colonizing. So we can't assume that AI and its creators know other worldviews. For example, Ubuntu, which is my worldview, which values the family, the community, the environment, and spirituality. So we can't assume that they know. We also can't assume that the few creators from colonized communities all value or use their worldviews. Meaning, even if AI is developed by someone from a colonized community, for example, Africa, or parts of Asia, or parts of Latin America, they can still do so from a colonial framework. And that's a key point. At times you find a few people working in those big companies creating AI products, the Google, the OpenAI, and the like of this world. But it doesn't mean that when they are there, maybe they are black, or they are coming from the Middle East, or from Latin America, or from India. It doesn't mean that they are working from a colonized, from a decolonized frame of mind. At times, they are still using a colonial frame in their creation of AI and AI products. So we also can't assume that AI will decolonize itself, and that the colonizing will decolonize AI. But experience shows that decolonizing requires both the colonized and the decolonizing to dismantle it. Different models have been suggested to decolonize. I've divided this into three: independence models, then the interdependence model, and also the dependence model. I'll start with the interdependence model. In relation to AI, it says creating an AI system for the colonized. So that's what an independence model would suggest. Let's create an AI model for the colonized. Let's create our own model. Then after creating, then you can collaborate on an equal basis with current AI versions that exist, the versions that exist today. Then produce alternatives to AI. These are some of the suggestions that have been made, and they can be classified as the independence model, being independent as far as AI is concerned. But others have also talked about the interdependence model, that's working collaboratively to develop AI from the start. Then a global village agenda that leaves no one behind. That's working together interdependently to create AI. Others have looked at the dependence model, which talks of modifying current AI system as they are modifying them, or removing colonial content from current AI infrastructure, systems, and processes. But others have also talked about revitalizing uncolonized knowledges and philosophies to feed into AI development. So these are some of the models that we could use to think about decolonization of artificial intelligence. We can also learn from academics like Chilisa. Chilisa has got a model of decolonization and indigenization, which is very relevant to most contexts of the globe, but more specifically to the African context. What you see in the middle of the diagram is a Nguni shield. That shield is for restoration, is for protection, is also for revitalization. So that's the Nguni emblem that you see in the middle of that picture. So according to Chilisa, decolonizing and indigenization is about ensuring that the knowledge, the realities, and the values of the colonized are put on board, they are put on the table. And there are four ways of doing that. The first way is called the least indigenous approach. In this approach, a few of these knowledges, realities, and values find their way into teaching and learning. Then there's the integrative approach. The integrative approach is when we try to bring in values, knowledges, and realities of the colonized into the classroom, into teaching and learning. So there is more that gets in there compared to the first one, which is the least indigenized approach. Then Chilisa also talks about the third space methodology. So this is where a conscious attempt is made to combine knowledge of the colonized and also of the colonizing. We're talking about almost a 50-50 basis here, more than integrative, more than the first approach. Then there is one approach that Chilisa talks about, which is the predominantly indigenous research, where this is in the context of research, but applies squarely to teaching and learning. In the predominant approach, indigenous approaches, values, and knowledges are more, they are the majority compared to colonizing approaches. So when you teach the teaching and learning, the syllabus, the literature, everything else, there is more books, more textbooks, more readings, more journal papers from the colonized as opposed to the colonizing. There's also more examples from the colonized, more orientation towards the colonized. In short, more knowledges, more approaches, and more methods come from the colonized, which becomes the predominantly indigenous approach. So these are the approaches that Chilisa has contributed to decolonization. And of course, these were written with too much focus on research, but they are just as useful in teaching and learning. Now, just a quick summary of the levels that Chilisa gave us. I've added level 0, which is my own edition. And also level number 5, that's my own edition. So level 0, we are using colonial approaches. Colonial approaches are in place. Everything is colonial. Then level number 1, least indigenized, I've talked about it. Then level 2, integrative. Then level 3, predominantly indigenous. Then level 4, third space methodology or Afroecology. When I bring in Nabudere, 2011. Then level number 5, which is my edition, that's the totally indigenous approach, where everything is indigenous. Indigenous knowledges are valued, methods are valued, approaches are valued, and they are used in teaching and learning. I'll also give some, towards the end now, but I would want to give some principles of decolonizing teaching and learning. So decolonization has to be broader, not only focusing on assessments, but the philosophy. Western worldviews are not universal, but you'll find them dominating, as Chelisa and Nabudere have said. They dominate teaching and learning. They are not universal. There are other worldviews. There are worldviews in Asia, in the Middle East, in Latin America, in Africa. All those worldviews in the Pacific, they deserve a table when it comes to teaching and learning. We also decolonize curricula, subject outlines, subject outcomes, as well as assessments. Then teachers are supported to be competent to decolonize. That's an important principle. We can't talk about decolonization without supporting lecturers, tutors to decolonize. Then students are also supported to decolonize. So decolonizing is a journey. Students, they need support, especially after years of intaking colonial content within colonial systems. Decolonization may be difficult or even very difficult for some, and there is need for them to be supported. Then language, it is crucial to revalue colonized languages. Real-world learning experiences and assessments, these are really crucial when it comes to decolonization. When you are providing assessments and those assessments engage the community, they engage villages, they engage people on the streets, those assessments are real assessments and they allow the student to decolonize naturally. Then, of course, reverse pedagogy, which is a conscious approach to reverse all the learning or the learning approaches that people have been exposed to that come from a colonial framework. Then, of course, taking a practice focus that acknowledges that not only all students learn from a westernized context. Then, of course, policy on decolonization and indigenization, it's required at the local, but also at the global level. These are some of the principles that I've come up with of decolonizing teaching and learning. And when we are thinking about decolonizing artificial intelligence, we should be thinking about these principles. There are challenges with artificial intelligence, as been highlighted by many, especially those who have described it as hallucinative, especially towards colonized communities. Others have described it as an extension of colonization and injustice. However, there are some opportunities. AI is good for ideation or generating ideas. It is experimental, so we can say mistakes are likely, but we can learn together. Then AI tools know that they have colonial content, biases, and practices. So when I searched OpenAI, and asked AI whether it was colonial or not, it said yes, content here can be colonial, and reasons were given. So that's a good starting point, AI acknowledging that it is a colonial application. Then increasing the number of developers from the colonized is really something that I've seen those developers talk about. I've just searched what is being done to deal with AI bias and colonial tendencies. And one of the strategies that developers are using is to increase the number of developers from the colonized. Then training developers to do a better job. So even if there are more developers, it doesn't mean that they are also all coming from a decolonizing frame. Then productivity, the colonized have an opportunity to produce AI, so including myself. We all have that opportunity now to contribute to AI, not only knowledge, but even developing applications, embedding AI in what we do, but also developing AI applications and tools, not just consuming what others have developed. Then AI has been challenged, which is a good thing that we are challenging AI. It is challengeable by people from both. It is being challenged by people from both the colonizing but also the colonized worlds. So that's an important thing that this is happening. I'll end by saying Sangofa, which is Sewo Were Finawosani Kofa Yankiri, which means go back and get it. And here I'm talking about philosophies. We have to go back to the philosophies of the colonized, the values, the theories of the colonized, by going back to those knowledges, to those philosophies, when we are thinking or creating AI tools and applications and content. When we go back, that's Sangofa, we are contributing in a deeper way to the decolonization of artificial intelligence. I will end here. Takuta, obrigado, osoko, webale nyo, to twatela, mayita, murakoze, asante sana.